There we go. We should be live. Let's just let's just make sure everything's going according to plan here. Yeah, there we go. What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to each and every one of you. It is, of course, Wednesday. We're in the middle of the week. There's just 2.5 days left before it is weekend. And I'm sure most of you are already looking forward to the weekend. Never mind the fact that we just had a holiday not that long ago. But I mean, hey, January is usually a very long month. And so I'm sure we could all use a tiny break. And hopefully that weekend provides that reprieve. If nothing else, weekends tend to be quite nice because most of our government is also on break over the weekends. So usually on weekends, they don't say stupid crap that makes everyone go, what the hell is going on? But, anyways, we're going to be talking about quite a lot of stuff. Today's stream, like every other stream that I usually do, isn't good news. Well, depends on how you define good news, I guess. If what you're after is a flourishing, prosperous South Africa with the ANC at its head, communism instilled in every single place and form, this is a very bad stream for you. If what you're hoping for is a free South Africa, one where people are allowed to pursue their dreams, make something of themselves, with a government that doesn't consistently interfere in every single thing, every single element of society, then it's actually good news. And I think, in large part, there's a lot of people that I think is missing the importance of the Trump presidency in the United States. And by this, I'm not just talking about South Africa, just a quiet piece. How you doing, bro? I'm not just talking about South Africa, CRZA. How you doing? And South Africa's position within the world or the ANC or anything like that. I'm talking about an effective rewrite of the global world order, at least how everyone has understood it until now. Vujim, how you doing? Or Hujim, how you doing? I guess let me start by giving you guys a little bit of backstory before we get into all of the stories that I've highlighted for you today. Uh, Around the fall of the Cold War, so this would be 1990, the world goes from the monolithic power or the unilateral power that once ruled the world, which was America is the world superpower, and every other nation is just waiting for America to say what goes next, right? Or what can happen next. And you might say, but hold on, during the whole Cold War, Russia was there. Russia was never a serious competitor to the United States. Russia was a competitor that was trying to compete with the United States. And the United States largely involved themselves against the Russians because the United States was incredibly anti communist. And so they just made the Russians a natural enemy. But not so much because the Soviet Union was super powerful or that the Soviet Union ever had the opportunity to actually challenge the Americans in a war. It was more they had nuclear weapons, and that sort of made it that the United States couldn't just go in because nuclear weapons is the ultimate deterrent. But for the rest of the world outside of the Soviet bloc, America was the one that called the shots. Then the Soviet Union collapses. This is in 1990. And for all of you that might not know the history of this, there's a wonderful book by a man named Michael Malice. It's called The White Bull. If you have not read it yet, you absolutely have to. The book itself sort of gives you a very optimistic look at the world, and it does it by looking at some of the darkest and most horrendous periods of human history. He goes into the stuff that happened during the Soviet Union, what happened to some of the people who lived during the Soviet Union. He looks at North Korea and some of the terrible stuff that happens in North Korea. But then he gives you the white pill at the end. He shows you how, against all odds, things change. I'll give you guys a great example, and don't ask me to name names here. I can't remember who it was, but in the book, he actually does say it. The night before the Berlin Wall falls, the night before, there is a meeting at the embassy, and there's a bunch of Russian diplomats there. And one of the diplomats from Germany makes a joke with one of the diplomats from Russia that says, imagine if the Berlin Wall fell. And the Russian diplomat literally bursts out laughing, going, that will never happen. You and I will both be dead, and that wall will probably be higher. According to the Russian diplomat, never will Russia cede power of East Germany. And then, not even 24 hours later, Mr. Gorbachev tear down that wall. And the wall comes down, and very soon after, the Soviet Union starts crumbling. And there's a wonderful military strategist, Sarah Payne. She goes into all the detail on exactly how the Soviet Union collapsed and what led to its ultimate collapse. And if you understand how that collapsed, you will also understand. We're going to be talking about BRICS today. We're going to be talking about the sort of unholy Eastern Communist Alliance. And you're going to understand why those things also collapse and will collapse, because it's the same story as the Soviet Union. It's an empire built effectively on matchsticks. So, fundamentally, things can change very, very quickly. We tend to look at the ANC as this monolith that stands in front of us, and they still have 40% of the vote. And if you put them and the EFF and the MK together, they still have 2/3 of the vote. How can things ever change? But then you read something like the White Pill, and there were no indications prior to the the Berlin Wall falling, that the Soviet Union was weak. No one saw it coming. And then just suddenly, it crumbled. Because oftentimes, something as small as one guy being targeted with sanctions, one country being excluded, one country changing sides, can be the difference. And suddenly you just have this domino effect of countries collapsing in the wake of it. And Donald Trump, the New World Order after 1990, to get back to my point originally, the New World Order that was decided in 1990 was this idea that there would be no more projection of power. Power politics is dead. And instead, power politics will be replaced with pluralism and with liberal democracies. The idea was that we're going to make everyone like us. So you had Europe and America that basically said, hey, everyone wants to be democratic. Everyone wants to be free. So we're just going to make everyone free and democratic. And that's going to be perfect. And we're not going to do it by exporting power. We're not going to be doing it by forcing other nations. We'll just, this, of course, is what led to the Forever Wars in 2001, or really 2002, when George W. Bush went into Afghanistan and the Forever Wars started. Because the world, America and Europe, had this sort of view about the world that said, we are moral. We're the moral good in the world. And that means that whatever we want must be morally good, right? We must be morally good because we are morally good. And that means that if Russia tries to, stop NATO expansion to their borders, Russia must be evil because we're morally good. That means that if we're expanding NATO, that's for a morally good reason. The older politicians, if you go back to like the Nixon era in America, they did not have this view. They didn't view themselves as, obviously every person thinks of themselves as moral, but their world or their geopolitical approach was never about, look at how moral we are. It was far more an approach of, we're America and this is what we want. And if you don't want to give it to us, we're going to force you to give it to us. We don't give a crap what you do at the end of the day, as long as you don't do this. Right? That was America's approach, and they couldn't care less what other countries were or were not about to do. They only cared about what do we need as America in order to be safe. Donald Trump really is a return to that. Power politics is back. The era of the world elites and the World Economic Forums, those eras are coming to an end. Donald Trump is going to the World Economic Forum this weekend. Is it this weekend or next weekend? One of the weekends. And I guarantee you, Donald Trump is going there to put the World Economic Forum on notice, to tell all of those elites, all of those bankers, and all of those world powers that wants to control the world through communism. He's about to tell them, get wrecked, bro. You might have influence. Maybe you have a lot of money, but I have guns and tanks and submarines and I have the special forces. So I will say what we do next because I represent America and this is what America wants. And communism isn't on the menu. This, of course, has upset the entire world order. No one really knows what's going on. That's why you have this endless screaming about international law, because everyone still thinks we're living in the era of international law. But international law is a joke. You see, because international law was specifically designed by communists for communists. The liberal world order that came up with things like the United Nations, these were not people who thought about the world in the, well, actually, I shouldn't say the people who originally founded it, because their ideas were actually not that terrible. But shortly after they founded the United Nations, the infiltration groups, because that's what communists do, they started to infiltrate the UN, and that's why up until now, the UN has said not a word about what is happening in Iran. Not a word. The Ayatollah's troops are slaughtering Iranians. You guys will remember, right after the 7th of October, when Hamas, the Gazans, attacked Israel, and by the way, don't come at me with this nonsense of, oh, but it was Hamas, it wasn't the Gazans. On the 8th of October, I saw the videos of the ordinary citizens in Gaza celebrating the mass murder and rape of Israelis. Ordinary civilians, the innocent civilians in Gaza, were celebrating the victory that Allah has given the Hamas soldiers, or the terrorists rather. So don't come at me with this, oh, but innocent. I don't care about that. These people were not innocent. They were the ones who celebrated. Perhaps you should not have done that if you did not want to get clapped back. But the day after the attack, Israel has not responded yet. The UN puts out a post saying Israel needs to temper their response. Israel has just been attacked by Hamas. Israel has not yet responded to this. They're still deciding what they're going to do next. The UN isn't out here condemning what Hamas has done. They're out here telling Israel, oi, boys, don't overreact here. Yes, a lot of people were killed. Yes, a lot of hostages were taken, but come now. You know, what's a few innocent civilians dead among friends, right? So please, miss me with this bullshit about, oh, but the sympathy and, oh, the UN. The UN is an evil organization. From root to stem, all of it needs to be ripped out because they still haven't said anything about what's happening in Iran. But the UN provided a wonderful shield for all of the communist regimes of the world to be able to do whatever they want. You'll note, by the way, the same South African government that is currently screaming at the top of their lungs about international law in Venezuela and in Gaza, they didn't want to arrest al-Bashir. Is it what's his name again? The guy from Syria. He has this incredibly dishonest face. I can't remember his name now. Bashir al-something. I think it's Bashir al-something. Can't remember his name now. It's completely out of my mind. But they didn't want to arrest him. In fact, they said that they will not arrest him. When Putin wanted to come to South Africa, the South African government did not want to arrest Putin. It was ultimately Putin that said, in order to save South Africa from not having to make a difficult decision, he will just not come. This is the same country that is screaming bloody murder about international law and talking about how they're the principled ones, always non-aligned, right? That's what they call themselves. We're non-aligned. When Iran is killing tens of thousands of civilians, the South African government says nothing. It could have been Omar al-Bashir. He was the president of Syria. He eventually fled to Russia. He now lives in Moscow because, well, they want to kill him in his own country, right? That guy. But anyways, hey from Australia, love your work. Satiric Talks, thank you very much. Welcome, by the way, to all of you. Very happy to have you here. I'm just trying to not lose my place in all of this, but I am looking at chat. So that's why I continuously lose my place, because I'm trying to keep an eye on what you guys are saying as well. But okay, so you have South Africa just sort of screaming endlessly about international law, even though South Africa itself has broken international law on multiple occasions. We're literally breaking international law every single day with all of the race laws that exist in South Africa. We're breaking it because the ANC wants to invade Orania now. That's been on the table for a while. Never mind the fact that people have the right to assimilation, but also the right to association. People have the right under the UN charters to associate with whomever they want. That means Orania is not in breach of any international law. They're allowed to just not mix with anyone else, but they don't give a crap, right? Bashir al-Assad. There we go. Snip. Thank you. Bashir al-Assad. That's the guy I was thinking of. Thank you. Thank you. He's the guy that South Africa refused to arrest, even though he was literally using chemical weapons on his own people. That's apparently the principled ANC and all of their communist evil tyrants. They don't care if you're using chemical weapons on your own people. They don't care if you're literally slaughtering your own people who are protesting for freedom. Well, that's just fine. I don't see any problem with that. But hey, you remove an evil dictator, drug kingpin from his own country that he has also been tyrannically oppressing for almost, well, over a decade. Well, that's a bridge too far. How dare you? You see, and that's because, and this leads us into our first conversation for today. Over on BizNews, there's an insanely good article that was written by, it just says the editor of BizNews. So they don't actually say who exactly wrote the article. Oh yeah, here we go. It's Ivo Vegter or Vector. Not entirely sure how to pronounce his name. But the article itself, I'm not going to show you guys the article. You can go read it. I don't want to get into trouble. This is one of the reasons I don't really show stuff on live stream. I don't want to get into trouble with people coming after me saying you had no right to show our work, because a lot of this stuff is behind subscription walls and stuff. So I don't want to get into that kind of trouble. But effectively, the article says why South Africa should walk away from BRICS Plus. And he goes through an entire explanation of how BRICS even came to be. And these are things that I didn't even know, right? And I consider myself to be, at least to some extent, quite informed about world politics. But there was once an organization known as NAM, the Non-Alignment Movement. It had over 121 countries at the height of it that was part of NAM, right? And all of these countries basically just put themselves forward as countries that do not want to align with anyone in a conflict. The problem? Listen to one of its members and what they said. The NAM actually is. Struggle against imperialism, colonialism, neocolonialism, racism, and all forms of foreign aggression, occupation, domination, interference, or hegemony, as well as against great power and bloc politics. That was Fidel Castro in 1979, explaining what NAM actually means and what the people who are part of NAM actually want. The ANC, they were sort of, at least they weren't in charge of the country, so they couldn't be a part of it, but they were certainly they were aligned with it, very much so, because they were very much aligned with Castro and the like. Now, NAM didn't survive. Interestingly enough, the NAM alliance did not survive, and that's because the entire idea behind it was simply ideological. They had no answers for anything to do with economics, no answer for anything to do with military, no answer for anything to do with strategy. It was just ideology, right? Communism first, everything else second. And ultimately what ended up happening is, as each of these countries that were part of the NAM movement started to find themselves in hot water with one way or another, they just started turning on each other, and eventually the entire group collapsed as a result of it. And then in the wake of all of that, you have the G7 that's founded. Then eventually the G7 finds the G20. And this ultimately then leads to what we can now call BRICS or BRICS Plus. Now, what's interesting about BRICS, or BRIC as it was initially dreamt up, BRIC was actually an invention of an economist that worked at Goldman Sachs, Jim O'Neill. So Jim O'Neill was the original creator of BRIC. And the entire idea was that Russia, China, India, and Brazil would be the answer to the West, to capitalism, because Jim O'Neill was of the opinion that we need an answer to the Western bloc and the Western economic powerhouses. Because from his perspective, two is better than one. But ultimately, he did kind of dream that these nations would be the future, that they were growing so fast and there was so much room to grow that as America is entering its twilight days, these nations would rise up and they would become the next great superpower. Eventually, Jim O'Neill wrote the following. Given today's global challenges and the enormous issues facing the BRICS, the bloc's ongoing failure to develop substantive policies through its annual summitry has become increasingly glaring. He goes on to write, and I quote, a symbolic gesture to create a sort of IMF clone writ small. And what is incredibly interesting, actually, this was from a Chinese academic, excuse me. What's incredibly interesting, O'Neill goes on to write, this was in 2024 after South Africa hosted it and they admitted a bunch of new countries to it. Among those countries were Egypt, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The annual BRICS summit is an ideal occasion for political leaders like Vladimir Putin to promote a vision of a world that the United States does not lead. But each year also brings further confirmation that the grouping serves no real purpose beyond generating symbolic gestures and lofty rhetoric. This is the creator of BRIC, that finally realizes that BRICS is nothing more than an anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist movement. They don't have an answer to anything. People love to go on about how Bridge, their payment plan, is going to be the future and it's going to replace SWIFT. The problem with that is if you put all of the countries that currently belong to BRICS, if you put all of them together, right? Let me just give you guys some actual statistics here. The US alone rivals BRICS Plus in economic size. So the US on its own has a larger economy than the entirety of BRICS, and BRICS Plus. All of the nations that are now part of it. The US alone is bigger than all of them. The US and Europe together, despite representing less than 10% of the world's population, produce far more, 43.6% versus 28.3% of global GDP. So America and Europe together is almost twice as large as all of the BRICS Plus nations put together. The US and Europe also represents twice the export volume of the entire BRICS Plus bloc, 40.8% versus 20.9% of the world's total trade. So are you starting to see? You have the giant that is America. You have the slightly smaller giant that is Europe. And then you have not even the Goliath, you have the ant that is BRICS Plus. And in this scenario, one cannot make the argument David versus Goliath, because in the Bible, in the story of the Bible, Goliath is the evil heathen that is yelling slurs against the God of Israel. And David stands with God at its back, and David kills Goliath. Here, in spite of what you think of the West and of America and Europe, anyone that isn't a communist can look at America and Europe, two countries or two areas, one country and one area, where people are still allowed to criticize their government. People are still allowed to enjoy freedom. People don't, well, unless you're UK, in which case you can't post a lot of things online. But for the most part, people can still, to some extent, be free. Versus China, where if you say things against the government, you get disappeared. Russia, if you say things against Vladimir Putin, you get disappeared. Iran, where if you say anything that they don't like, and that changes every single day, you get disappeared. Venezuela, that is a literal dictatorship and a narco-terrorist state. Cuba, which, again, not a great place to be, although I don't think they're officially part of BRICS, but they are kinda. Brazil, that is also so corrupt and so full of cartels that it's not even funny. Like, are we serious here? The only country that is part of the BRIC nations that we could sort of argue might not be a bad nation is India, right? Every other nation is a hellscape. But then, of course, the article finally gets to why it doesn't make sense for South Africa. And just for those of you who think, but no, BRICS isn't about anti-Western. BRICS is just about developing countries and developing countries standing together. I'll give you guys what Dlamini Zuma had to say. Let me just find that for you quickly. Here we go. So, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma had the following to say at the summit during 2023 in South Africa. The history of BRICS is fundamentally, and I quote, a history of resistance against colonial conquest and imperial abuse. So, in spite of what the adherents might tell you, no, this is just about development of tiny little developing nations. No. This is an anti-Western bloc. The entire plan and idea and focus of this bloc is to try and destroy Western hegemony. I always want to say hegemony, but that would be wrong. Hegemony. It's to destroy the America's hold and power within the world. And of course, America isn't going to stand for that. But to give you guys an idea of why South Africa should just not get into it, let's talk about China and what China, because China really is the only country that matters in BRICS. Because everyone will tell you China is South Africa's largest trading partner. Well, let's examine that, shall we? While China is South Africa's biggest single export market, with just over 200 billion rand in the first 11 months of 2025, we export 3 times as much to the US and Europe combined. So the West is still a far better trading partner than China is. Russia only accounts for about 6 billion rand in trade for exports in South Africa, so Russia doesn't even count in this. India represents just over a third of our exports to China, or 12% of our exports to the US and Europe. Brazil, like Russia, hardly moves the needle. For imports, China is more important at 384 billion rand. Still, Europe alone is a bigger source of imports, and Europe and the US together account for 50% more than China does. So, are you guys seeing the trend here? The ANC is cutting off their largest trading partners in order to side with groups that genuinely, it makes no sense. Why would we side with these people? But there's a reason for it. Because the ANC isn't a principled opposition. The ANC isn't non-aligned. The ANC is filled with a bunch of communist would-be dictators. My video today shows that perfectly. If you haven't watched my video yet this morning, I absolutely suggest that you do, because that video highlights so perfectly where we're headed. And we are going. Right? South Africa, the ANC is going to try and take power by force here in South Africa. But okay, so now that we've dealt with that and dealt with why BRICS is going to collapse, and it will collapse, just like NAM collapsed, just like every other communist sort of utopia has tried, let's turn our attention to Donald Trump. Why you guys are here, why you clicked on this stream in the first place. Because Donald Trump is turning up the heat. As I've already explained, the world has changed. The idea of international politics, international law, that's done. Because Donald Trump understood one thing that South Africa and the rest of the world still has not figured out. You know, back in the day, back in like the 1990s or even like the 2000s or even like the 2010s, do you know why international law meant anything? Do you know why? When the International Criminal Court, for example, found someone guilty of doing something, do you know why that actually mattered? I'm betting that a lot of communists and leftists don't. It was because after that ruling, America would go and mete out justice. That's why. When any country broke international law, it was America that enforced international law. America effectively became not even necessarily the policeman of the world, but rather like the henchman of the world. So if two countries had a problem with each other and one country broke the rules, America would be the one that goes, okay, I'll go help you, and then I'll set things right. That's how the world operated. Outside of that, international law means nothing, and Donald Trump realized that. Donald Trump was like, wait, hold on. We're the only ones enforcing this, right? No one else is enforcing it. Everyone else continuously breaks it. We seem to be the only nation that continuously plays by international rules, at least to some extent, not always. But for the most part, America plays to international rules. America could have done a lot of things before, which they don't do because they don't want to be in breach of international law. Well, listen to this. This was last night. Donald Trump posts on Truth Social and he says, Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have cancelled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. MAGA, make Iran great again. President Donald J. Trump. That's Trump. Last night on Truth Social. Now let me paint a picture for you guys here. Prior to America going in to grab Maduro, America also stopped all negotiations with Maduro. Just went radio quiet, radio silence. And then they moved in and they captured him. Now, a lot of people, and I've seen this all over my X, a lot of people have been asking, what's the US waiting for? Protesters are dying. Protesters are dying. They need help. Why is America taking so long? So I'll give you guys the answer. In the past, if we go back to the forever wars, when George W. Bush goes into Afghanistan, there are two plans on the card here, two objectives that need to be achieved. The one is, and I genuinely believe that George W. Bush did want to bring democracy to the Middle East, but democracy that also serves the military-industrial complex. You see, if the military-industrial complex, the guys that actually make a lot of money for the senators and the congressmen on the Hill, because if you guys didn't know, both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party get massive donations from the military-industrial complex. And by complex, I mean all of the different defense contractors that exist in America pay lots of money to both the Democrats and the Republicans. So they had to make sure that if we're going to bring freedom to the Middle East, these guys also have to make money. And so their plan was sort of half-hearted. Instead of actually making change, the idea was to go in, boots on the ground, because that's the biggest moneymaker. We don't want to have change happen too fast, because that doesn't make money. We need change that happens over the course of a few years. And of course, in this, America makes a fundamental error. America overestimates their ability and their power in the region. It is very expensive to fight long wars very far from home. You don't want to fight long wars very far from home. And Wade, thank you so much for the 40 Rand donation. Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Donald J. Trump kicking ass and taking names. Truth, sir. Very, very true. But okay, so America is now sitting sort of pretty in this forever war. Donald Trump has a very different approach. So yesterday, I'm watching Pete Hegseth, who is the Secretary of the Department of War in America, used to be the Department of Defense. I love war a lot better, by the way. But Pete Hegseth is touring SpaceX, Elon Musk's new gigafactory in Texas, which is legally a town, actually. It's legally considered a town because of how big it is. But anyways, he's touring it. And Pete Hegseth makes a remark during his speech there that told me the military-industrial complex is dead. And Donald Trump killed it very specifically. I'll explain to you how he did it. Pete Hegseth says to SpaceX, to all of the engineers that sit there, gone are the days of eternal contracts with military defense contractors that produce nothing, and when it does produce something, it produces an outdated, overpriced product. Instead, the Secretary of War is making an open call to all tech companies and defense companies throughout America. Innovate, build. If you have something that we want, we'll pay you for it. But innovate and build. Build to your heart's content. Just give us results. This is a massive change from where things used to be, just FYI. Because it used to be, if you were Boeing, you had this endless contract with the United States where you just make their planes. And so what happened is a lot of these companies became so super lazy that they would just sort of, do the same thing over and over again. And they had all sorts of deals. You guys in South Africa know exactly what I'm talking about, where they have to design a new plane for the United States military. And that plane would be like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years behind schedule. Why? It's more money, right? They can just constantly go back to Congress and be like, well, we need more money. This is a very expensive project. And they would write more checks because they know Boeing is going to pay them. Now, how did Donald Trump do it? Because the last president that tried to defeat the military-industrial complex ended up very dead, John F. Kennedy. So how did Trump do it? What did Trump do differently? MAGA. That's the difference. You see, who do you take out? Do you take out Donald Trump? He's not alone. You see, this is the difference between Trump second term and Trump first term. First term, Donald Trump walks into the White House alone, just him, with a man with a vision to change the world, to change America, to make America a better country. But he's alone. He's surrounded by the enemy. There's literally nothing that he can do here. Second time around, those 4 years that Trump had, where Biden was sort of going through life very, very sleepy, those 4 years may actually have been the biggest blessing to Donald Trump ever. Because in that time, with the help of Charlie Kirk, and yes, for those of you that don't know, Charlie Kirk actually fingered J.D. Vance. He was the man that told Trump, that guy, that's the man that you need to meet. He's the guy. So Charlie Kirk was very involved in all of this. But Donald Trump spends the next 4 years building a team of people. Every single person he chooses is brought into MAGA, and they're made to understand the objective. So now, if you assassinate Donald Trump, J.D. Vance takes over. J.D. Vance is exactly like Trump. If you assassinate Vance, Marco Rubio takes over. He's exactly like Trump. If you assassinate Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, and Trump, you have Tulsi Gabbard waiting in the wings. Also, exactly like Trump. The problem is, it's too deep. And you can see what Donald Trump has been doing since taking office. At lightning speed, they moved in and they started removing all of the bad actors and putting their own people into it. They are literally transforming the American machine into a MAGA machine. That's why you saw so many people fired, so many people laid off, so many people retrenched, so many people told, don't come in tomorrow, we'll call you. And why you saw so many people being brought in. Because the entire system is being magnified with this idea that even if a Democratic president were to take power, they would be helpless to stop it. Because they would be, like Donald Trump was in his first term, surrounded by MAGA, who just do what they want. And unlike Donald Trump, most politicians don't know how to deal with this. They don't know how to dismantle this, because Donald Trump is a businessman. He understands what it means to walk into a hostile business environment and fix that hostile business environment. So from Donald Trump's perspective, he understands the rules of the game has changed. And that's where Iran comes in. You see, Donald Trump isn't interested. And for those of you that saying, but why hasn't he gone in? He told them that he has their back. Donald Trump isn't interested in a forever war with Iran. If this was Barack Obama or Biden, there would be boots on the ground already. America would be entering their eternal war with Iran. Donald Trump isn't interested in that. He doesn't want a forever war because he understands America will not win that war. It takes too long. And the people in America will lose interest because Americans lose interest fast. I was speaking today to someone who explained this. When you live in America, and I don't know because I've never been there, but when you live in America, it's very difficult to really care about the rest of the world. It's really difficult. Because if you're living in Texas or if you're living in any of the states in America, your own country is so big. Your own country is so vast. There's so much there that it's just you really can't care about other countries for too long. Because you know, life's good. For the most part, life is brilliant in America, and it really is the land of milk and honey. So from Americans' perspective, unless you can do it like this, don't even go. Trump understands this. So Trump is looking at all of the options, and they have been told, right? Trump has said there are plenty of options that has been presented to him by the Department of War, and they're now weighing all of the options. There's going to be a strike in the next week in Iran from America. This will be a quick and very decisive strike. I will not be surprised if Donald Trump brings the entire Iranian regime to its knees. I would not be surprised. Black Ink, how you doing, bro? Ever watch Kim Clement's prophecies? I have not, no. I don't put a lot of stock in sort of post-biblical prophecy. Not that I'm saying they're wrong. It's like people come to me and say, hey, you should watch Siener van Rensburg. I've read his books. I know the prophecies well. It's in the Bible, the only prophecies that aren't about the time. So prophets in the Bible, whenever they prophesy, they are always prophesying about this generation. So if they say this will happen, it happens in this generation. They don't prophesy about things that's going to happen, 100 years from now, 200 years from now. There's only one exception when they prophesy about Jesus Christ. That's the only exception where they will prophesy an indefinite date in the future. So I find it difficult to I love reading prophecies, but I don't put stock in them. I keep them in the back of my head, and I look. So when stuff happens here in South Africa, I do go, ooh, Siener did say stuff like this. That's interesting, right? But I don't plan my life around Siener van Rensburg, and I don't do it around anyone. But I'll definitely check out Kim Clement. I'll definitely check that out. I think that's interesting. What you're saying, Trump's moves are like a modern day version of the Prince. Even Trump's idea is a strong America with a weak China. That's Trump's main plan. He wants a weak China because Trump understands that China is ideologically incapable of aligning with America. If China was a free and fair and capitalist country, Donald Trump would probably not even mind China that much. The problem with China is that they are not. Right? And that's a big issue for Trump. Because Trump understands that the New World Order, the battle for the 21st century, is a battle between communism and capitalism. The war started in the 90s. Well, actually in the 1900s. The war will be finished, I believe, around 2030, 2035, is where we will see capitalism finally destroy communism, or at least push it right back. There's going to be arguments that we're going to have because I am not entirely convinced that you can share countries with communists. So in that regard, I do think that at some point the world is going to start to have some very uncomfortable conversations. If we want to be a free and prosperous nation that cares about people, should we allow communists to live in our midst? And I would argue the answer there is obviously no, because a capitalist and a communist cannot agree on even the most fundamental points. There's no compromises that can be made with communists. And so I'm not arguing that people should be marched off to the gas chambers. I'm arguing that countries will have to split. So America might have to say to California, good luck, boys. Here's all your communists. Do your thing, but you're no longer part of America. South Africa might have to say, boys, there's Limpopo, there's Mpumalanga. Go enjoy your communism, but we don't want to be a part of that. No, thank you. You're also not a part of us. So there's going to have to be a split, because I don't believe that these people, I don't believe we can get along in that way. But okay, so Donald Trump is going to act, and I believe that it's going to be decisively. And I believe, just like what happened in Venezuela, the world is going to stand stunned. Because Donald Trump has two things that he wants to achieve. He showed it in Venezuela, and he's going to show it in Iran. First, what did Venezuela actually achieve? It pushed China and Russia out of South America. South America now once again belongs to the United States of America. Two, every single dictator in the world looked at what happened there and went, and excuse my language here, shit. Every single dictator looked at that and thought, shit. Because if he can do it to Maduro, he can probably do it to me. I believe that Donald J. Trump is going to do the same thing to Iran. The idea here is to put the world on notice. It's to say to the world, all right, boys, look at what we can do. And then make a decision whether or not you think you should continue to resist us. Now, the ANC will, of course, immediately resist, because that's what they've done. They still are on the side of the evil dictatorship. They're not on the side of the people, even though the people are being killed and slaughtered. It is what it is. But I think Donald Trump is going to show just once again how bad things are going to be. If you want to know how bad things are going to be for South Africa, though, so this is from the U.S. Department of State, Marco Rubio's department, that says terrorist designations of Muslim Brotherhood chapters. And there's one specific bit here that I wanted to highlight for you. The Department of State is designating the Lebanese Muslim Brotherhood as a foreign terrorist organization and a specially designated global terrorist. The group's leader, Muhammad Fawzi Takosh, as an SDGT. Concurrently, the Department of the Treasury is designating the Egyptian Muslim Brotherhood and Jordanian Muslim Brotherhood as SDGTs for providing material support to Hamas. I want you all to understand this. They have provided material support to Hamas, and they are now considered terrorist organizations. Think ANC here. Next, these designations reflect the opening actions of an ongoing, sustained effort to thwart Muslim Brotherhood chapters, violence and destabilization wherever it occurs. The United States will use all available tools to deprive these Muslim Brotherhood chapters of the resources to engage in or support terrorism. Again, think about South Africa and the ANC. Think about what the ANC is up to. Think about the funding. Think about the allegations. We know that a lot of people in America believe that South Africa knew about the October 7th attacks. There's even people who believe that the ANC may have been involved in funding of the of Hamas, and funding, or at least helping funds flow to Hamas. This means that we're probably on that list. To make matters even worse, now, all of you should already know that there are a number of congressmen and senators that have already called upon Donald J. Trump to take firmer action against South Africa. But there's now a new voice. U.S. Senator Jim Risch, had the following to say. He has called on the Trump administration to adopt stronger measures against South Africa's ANC government, accusing Pretoria of aligning with U.S. rivals. Risch cited South Africa's joint naval drills with Russia, China, and Iran as evidence of open hostility toward the U.S., calling for action beyond diplomatic talks. In other words, no more talking, no more discussions. We discussed this yesterday, because yesterday the foreign ministry of the Senate had the same conclusion. So diplomatic talks would be negotiations. The Senate is now saying enough of negotiations. The time for negotiating is over. The South Africans, the ANC has proven that they cannot be negotiated with. There is no point in even talking to them. Let's just get going. South Africa maintains its participation reflects maritime safety and cooperation, while protesters and political analysts push back against perceived U.S. interference. That's just not true, but MDN News isn't necessarily the most truthful organization. There were no protests about this. Okay, so the cartel linked dictator Maduro, all lefties can think is Orange Man bad. Philip, you're not wrong. You're not wrong with the point, not the person. Yeah, guys, don't start attacking each other personally. PJ, let me just quickly. Okay, so PJ says, I think you people should get over the Trump thing. He's not going to make the world a better place. PJ, define better place. Is Donald Trump going to sort out the communists of the world? Yes. Is Donald Trump going to sort out the dictatorships and the tyrants of the world that continues to side with China? Yes. In my book, that's a better world. Do I want Donald Trump to establish world peace? No. Do I want Donald Trump to make every country in the world rich and prosperous? Hell no. I want Donald Trump to care about America. But I also would like the tyrants and the dictators out. And Donald Trump is going to achieve that. And for that, that's a better place, in my opinion. Now, if you want the perfect world, no one can offer that. No one can deliver that. But Trump is certainly better than Biden or Obama or literally any other president that you could ever imagine at coming close, at least, I would say. And that's just an objective fact. So there's this, the one final, I think, place where sort of communists hide is in this idea that Donald Trump will not be the president forever. Now, we spoke about this yesterday, but there's one thing that I wanted to add to that. Again, you can go watch my stream yesterday if you want my full thoughts on Donald Trump and the Republicans and the MAGA movement and the likelihood of them remaining in power. Because a lot of ANC voters are thinking that the end of this year with the midterms, the Republicans will lose the House and the Senate, and then they'll be fine because the Democrats will protect them. Don't be so fast. Don't think that is actually going. That's a sure one. The American public is oftentimes fickle. And it might look like the Democrats are about to win, but I will say that there are some CNN polls that have come out recently that actually show that the Democrats in Congress are hated by the American people. In fact, the Republicans in Congress are getting much better results from CNN polls than the Democrats are. So don't be so quick to think that it's just a phase. Not to mention the fact that if America's economy suddenly starts roaring back and life gets cheaper for people, Donald Trump will have a clean sweep. The people of America will just vote en masse for all of the Republicans in office. But then something that I wanted to mention yesterday that I didn't get to because I forgot, very important here. Do not underestimate how long the MAGA movement can remain in power. Remember, I already told you. Donald Trump didn't come unprepared this time. Donald Trump came to the White House with a team of people. That team had one objective: remove every single left-wing communist from government and replace those communists with MAGA loyalists. People who want to make America great again. And that's what they've been doing. When you look at Donald Trump going after all of these corrupt states in America now, that's the same thing. Donald Trump is now cleaning up the states, going after the evil communist Democrats that are allowing a lot of these regimes to run rampant. We know, for example, in Michigan, is it Michigan? It is Michigan, where all the Somali stuff is going. And the money that's flown out of the country to Somali. This is what Trump is going after. I believe we're going to see thousands of Democrats, corrupt, vile, evil Democrats, be arrested in America before long. Minnesota, sorry, not Michigan. For some reason, I thought Michigan, but Michigan, I think, is on the list of states that they're looking at. The one state I remember because I watched an entire interview was California, but that's apparently coming. There's a new assistant district or assistant state attorney that is being erected. This person's only job is to look at corruption in the states. And they're going after California, Minnesota, and there's a number of other states that's being targeted as a result of this. I think there's going to be thousands of arrests that's going to happen as a result of this because Donald Trump is now cleaning up the states. So what's going to happen here, and this is important, if Donald Trump's economy works, if we're working in the land of if here, and if is usually a dangerous place to be, especially as a political commentator. But if Donald Trump's plan works, J.D. Vance becomes president in 2029. J.D. Vance will be president for 8 years because J.D. Vance will continue the MAGA plan. There's a plan in place. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how they want to get there. He will be the president for 8 years. After J.D. Vance, Tulsi Gabbard will become the next president because she will be his vice president. She will continue the MAGA plan. After Tulsi Gabbard, it will be Marco Rubio because he will be her vice president. That, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking, 24 years of Republican rule. Does the ANC think they have 24 years to wait? Does the ANC imagine that in 24 years they'll still be here, able to fight the evil imperialists in America? No. If Donald Trump's economic plan works, the Democrats will not see power again, most likely for 30 years. I would be surprised, actually. Andreas, I'm just sort of giving names here because how they go in order could also be decided, right? They might actually decide, look, we don't want because there's usually a curse on vice presidents in America. People rarely vote for the vice president. So it is possible that they could say, okay, after Trump, it can't be J.D. Vance. After Trump, it needs to be Marco Rubio. He becomes president, right? J.D. Vance becomes Secretary of State or whatever, and Tulsi Gabbard is his vice president, and then you have J.D. Vance running after Rubio, and so on and so forth. So they can rotate it and make sure that there's a line of succession for MAGA. And MAGA will just remain in power. So I'm not really too fussed about the names and the direction or the order in which they come. The point is more, it's probably going to be for the next 30 years, right? So yeah, Trump kon niemand betroubaar in sy administrasie kry om met Rusland te onderhandel, moes eiendomsontwikkelaar wat hy persoonlik ken stuur, Steve Witkoff, dis die gemors wat hy mee sit. Levitt, I would argue yes, but also Donald Trump isn't opposed to using businessmen in government. A lot of Trump's cabinet and a lot of the people in Trump's immediate circle are all businessmen. See, because Trump understands one thing that most politicians don't: the art of the deal. How does one make deals? Businessmen are better than politicians because politicians don't think about all of the various aspects of it. Because remember, a politician isn't really making a deal with their own money. They're making deals with other people's money. And when you're making deals with other people's money, you don't really care about the who cares? But if you're a businessman, the economy of America matters to you. And so you're going to be arguing and dealing differently, right? Okay, so let's see. I'm going to take a couple of questions before we end the stream because I still have to eat before Bible study this evening. Abaddon, how you doing, bro? Where's the numbers? Normally 2% is fantastic. When J.D. Vance, yeah, that's true, Abaddon. When J.D. Vance becomes president, Trump will be an advisor as well as a hype man. Trump will hold rallies until he's in the grave. Oh, Evan, yeah. I mean, Donald Trump is going to be advisor to whoever becomes president next. Then Barron Trump will be ready for office. Yeah, I imagine Barron Trump wants to be in office. According to many reports, Barron Trump wants to go into politics, so I would not be surprised if that is exactly what ends up happening. Don't think Tulsi will be involved. They froze her out for the Venezuela play due to her views there. Abaddon, maybe. But I also think they had to sort of freeze her out so that she, I don't know. I genuinely, because people said Elon Musk has been frozen out, and then Donald Trump is an interesting character. He'll be upset with you in one way, and he'll be like, yeah, you're gone. But then, he'll bring you back because Elon Musk is suddenly back. So it might be that Tulsi Gabbard will eventually make a return, and they'll bring her back. But if she's not back, I'm sure there's going to be other people. Tracy with the $10 donation. Really appreciate you. Welcome, sir. You are late, but also I had to start the stream a little bit earlier because I have Bible study this evening, and I still have to go make food. So kind of have to finish that before. You see, they're using Grok in the U.S. military now. Abaddon, I did not see that, but I'm not surprised. Right? America is innovating at an insane rate, and they seem to be very, very motivated to make South Africa, or make America, not South Africa, make America the greatest military the world has ever seen, which is interesting because they're already the greatest military the world has ever seen, but now they're just being more of the greatest military the world has ever seen. My hope is, and I think this is what Trump is hoping for as well, is that eventually he's joined by other leaders throughout the world. That would be my thinking. Trump is hoping that Europe stands up and joins America, that Europe will also get strong leaders that sort of prioritize freedom, prioritize capitalism, instead of this socialist nonsense that Europe just continuously seems to go down. So yeah, we'll see. Announced yesterday, partnership with X to use Grok platform as in-house AI template for the US military. Elon Musk is going to make a lot of money on that. When Barron is running for president, the opposing party will refer to him as the Red Baron since Trump is Mustache Man. Yeah, but I think names are starting to lose a lot of its luster. I don't think, I don't care, right? But then again, I've never actually cared about the names that people call me. I'm probably just one of those people. I'm too stupid to care. So from my perspective, whenever someone said, "Oh, they're gonna call you a Nazi," I'd be like, "Okay, is that it?" If it's names they're going to be calling me, I couldn't care less about that. So yeah, from my perspective, I think names are just losing a lot of its luster. No one really cares anymore. I can't understand why so many people don't like Donald Trump. Are they blind? He is saving the Western world. Greg, it's not that they hate Donald Trump, it's that they're communists. You need to understand, especially when you look at South Africa, the amount of people that are firmly declaring their support for the Ayatollah. No one that is good and decent can support the Iranian regime, and yet they are. Why are they? Because ideologically, they agree. And that's all that matters. He is a dictator. We like dictators. We hate the West. Good man. Right? So it's not even that they hate Trump. They hate what Trump represents. Good, free, honest people. They hate that. They can't stand that. They don't want people to be free. They want to be tyrants. This is the whole point. Grit and Grace, how you doing? Stefan, love your channel. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. What accent do you have? You sound a little like my kids who are South Africans who were homeschooled with America and curricula. Okay, so Grit and Grace, I am South African, right? My accent is, well, I'm actually Afrikaans. So ek kan Afrikaans praat met jou as dit jou gaan help om te glo dat ek Afrikaans is. Ek kan Afrikaans praat. Ek's gebore in Suid-Afrika. So gemaak, so laat staan. My accent, however, is a broken mess as a result of having friends all over the world and spending the majority of my adult life playing online video games. And so the majority of my life, I was just playing video games. I couldn't care less. It was my job before I switched to politics. I was a gamer, and I would make video game content. And so all of my friends were from America or from Europe or from the UK. And so you play games for 10, 12 hours a day with people from other countries, and eventually their accent is just going to influence the way that you think. And so yeah, that's where it happens. Stefan, jy is nie met enige kans van Pietersburg Limpopo af nie. Bobars, how you doing? Yes, I am. I was born in Polokwane, Limpopo, or Pietersburg as it was called when I was born, and then changed to Polokwane later. While never beating a game, it was quite impressive, really. He also did a very short stint on Warhammer. It's not a short stint. I still have all the books. I still read it. I'm looking forward to Warhammer Dawn of War 4. If you haven't watched that yet, Avedon, you must. It's going back to the roots of Dawn of War 1, which I literally bought the definitive edition of Dawn of War 1, the remake or the remaster of Dawn of War 1. So I have that now on my PC as well, busy playing it. So yeah, I'm still doing it. I'm just not making content on it. Do you have a gaming channel? Mornay, I do not. So I guess I'll give a little bit. I'll give a little bit of an update here. So I was an atheist for most of my life. About 2 years ago, I gave my heart to Christ. After becoming Christian, I had a bit of I don't want to say an existential crisis, because that would be way too dramatic. But I did have this thing in me where I would wake up every single day and I would have this one question. What does my life mean? What do I do? Is there anything that I do of any value? When I die tomorrow, what will I be remembered for? And it's not that I wanted to be famous. It's not that I want people to know my name. It's, am I making a difference or am I not? And so gaming content became a big chore for me to wake up every day and make gaming news. Because after every single video, as I'm uploading the video, my question would always just be, what's the point? Like, does it matter? Does it matter if there's a new Warcraft? Or does it matter if there's a new this game, that game, or the other? And sort of increasingly, I started to ask myself, what about my own country? What about my own people? This country is burning, and I feel like I should be helping. And so when I switched to making politics, it was purely by accident. So I did not start making content on politics because I thought I was going to make political content. A friend had asked me to explain to them how to do the refugee thing to America. I tried to look up how exactly you're supposed to do it, and I couldn't find anything. So I ended up going in and I read the questionnaire and stuff. And in doing that, I explained to them all of the steps that would be required. Like, what are you supposed to tell them? It was just the original questionnaire. Like, I don't know if you guys, there's a new questionnaire out now, but the original questionnaire, I just filled that one out so that I could tell them what those steps were. And it turns out you just put your name there, number, and then that's it. But I don't think that one even counts anymore. So I just sort of explained it to them, and then they started asking me all these questions about the political situation and what do I think. And as I'm explaining this to them, I sort of had this pull that I wanted to say something. Okay, I just wanted to say something, even if no one watches it. I want to add my opinion on the stuff that's happening. This was just as Donald Trump is talking about South Africa and about the plight of white people. And I'm seeing all of these different people, some claiming there's an absolute slaughter of white people in South Africa, others saying no white people are dying in South Africa, and no one is actually just saying what I would consider to be the truth, right? And the truth is that when you say there is a genocide in South Africa, you have to be very specific with what you mean. And you have to make sure that other people understand that genocide isn't millions of people dead in 24 hours. Genocide, that moment where the millions of people die in 24 hours, that's the end of it. That's not the beginning. That's the final step of genocide, right? No country just goes from everyone living happily, getting along, and then just one morning, everyone, like one group of the country wakes up and goes, hey, we're just going to kill everyone. These are steps. They play out over time, and you can, if you know what to look for, you can start to identify the steps of genocide, because genocide is a process, not an event. Right? But everyone thinks of it. And so I made this video about the genocide happening in South Africa and trying to explain it in the best way that I could, what my opinion was on it. And it turns out people loved it, because in that video, a lot of people had questions in the comment section. And so I made another video, answering a lot of the questions of the previous video. I mean, that video, I believe it was my second or my third video that just exploded. It went to like 50K views. And I remember praying and saying, God, is this what you want me to do? Is this where I should be now? And so I just kept making videos, and you guys just kept watching and watching. And literally that's all I do now. I wake up every day, I make a video, and you guys are watching. So, I'll continue to make them even if no one's watching, because I think that this country needs it. We need to fight for this country. There's no other way. There's no other way around it. If I don't fight for it, I can't expect anyone else to. So that's how I got into this, and that's why making gaming content for me now would just feel terribly counterintuitive. It would feel like a waste of time. Plus, I don't have time. When I'm not making videos, I am reading and researching and watching podcasts and just constantly trying to better my understanding of what the world is, constantly scrolling through X. I'll be watching a podcast and scrolling through X on the other screen, just looking for new pieces of information. So I don't have time to really even look at games. The only thing that teaches me what games are coming is my homepage on YouTube. To put yourself out here like you do. Philip, thank you. I appreciate that. But then again, it might just be stupidity. Never underestimate the power of a stupid man to do stupid things that make him look brave. I might just be too stupid to actually know how dangerous it is. I've been watching you for a long while when you started your Warcraft stuff. So yeah, I've been here a while. Grandfall, how you doing, bro? I remember you from back then, from back in the day. Your name is familiar to me. People change. I used to be an isolationist American. Now I'm more imperial. I actually don't have a problem with the imperialist mindset. I think, look, if you're the strongest nation in the world, you make the rules, and that's just how it is, right? Jy praat waar, geniet jou kanaal, Marius, baie dankie. Ek waardeer dit, ongelooflik baie. He's lying. It was also a slow roast of radicalism from us, bigoted anti-woke gamers, that were also watering the plant of politics. And Steph, that is also true, Caleb. I was always a bit of a rebel, even in the gaming space. You are wise and well-intentioned. You don't let emotions take over. Something Ronaldo can learn from you. Philip, I can't say anything bad about Ronaldo Ghost. I enjoy his channel a lot. And I think there's space for everyone, right? I happen to be in the fortunate position that whenever I see something, there are times where I'll get angry, but it usually doesn't last long, because my default position in life is, if it will happen, it will be because God wants it to happen. And so I don't have to worry about anything. I don't have to overplan. I'll give you guys an example of that will help explain my worldview. One of my brothers is going on a date, and he's sort of thinking about what should he say, what should he do. He doesn't want to chase her away. And I answered him and I said, if she is from God, nothing you do can ruin it. If she's your wife, if God decided that is your wife, you could literally show up and make a complete fool of yourself, and she'll still marry you because God has willed it. He is sovereign, and therefore you don't have to worry. And that's how I live my life. I don't believe that calls me to passivism, right? Obviously, I make content about the political situation in South Africa. I should be an active participant, and I should do my best to try and make this world a better place, insofar as I can serve God in doing that. But if it goes wrong, if I get arrested, if I get killed, that's because He wanted that, right? And from that, there will be good things that flow. But God calls all sorts of people to His side. Some people have to be more emotional. They have to get more angry, and that's great, right? That's amazing, because there's also, sometimes you just need someone to get angry, you know? Like, there are times where something happens, and I'm sure there's people that come to my channel and watch my response to it, and they go, man, he's not giving it. And then they go to Ronaldo, and he's a bit more, he's a bit more passionate about it. And that just speaks to them. They needed that passion right now. So I think that's brilliant. I think we have space for everyone here. So I love everyone that makes content that speaks out against the evils of the ANC. That's the thing that's most important to me. If you speak out against the evils of the ANC, I consider you to be an ally already, And honestly, the only thing I can say is you guys have blessed me with your time and your attention. Nothing I've done, I believe, could have deserved that, because I'm no more special than literally any one of you or any other content creator. I'm just a dude that shares my opinion on the world around me. And you guys have blessed me by showing me that love. So that doesn't make me better than anyone else. I can't look at my channel and be like, oh, wow, look how cool or good or anything like that, because I haven't done anything to achieve that. If you ask me now, what is the secret to your success? I cannot answer that. Like, I legitimately cannot tell you why you guys continue to watch my videos. I'm not trying to make the most clickbait thumbnails. I don't think I have the best thumbnails. I'm not trying to make the best titles. I don't think I have the best titles. I don't even put a lot of effort into my editing because I suck at editing. I genuinely suck at editing, so I don't put effort into it. So I genuinely do sometimes ask myself, why the hell are you guys here? Because I'm not special. I'm just me. And you guys happen to think that's good enough. So either you have very low expectations, which is obviously good for me, or I've been blessed, right? And God has given me this opportunity and this blessing, and I'm grateful for that. Kimmy, how you doing? Years and years of knowing you, it's just you. Thank you, Kimmy. And yeah, you've known me probably longer than almost anyone. Kan jy baie asseblief vir my so vinnige agtergrond gee en ook waar, wie en hoekom hy in my opinie vinnig steen verf? Jan Lombard, okay, so I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know much about Pieter Groenewald. And I know the surface level stuff, right? But I've never really dug into his life, just because the Freedom Front has been a rather insignificant party for quite some time. But I have been meaning to start reading up about him. I'm not really that interested in his past, although I do know that he was a bit more, shall we say, not necessarily aligned with apartheid, because that's what people get wrong. He wasn't for apartheid. He was against the negotiations as they were played out by the National Party. And there's a huge difference between those two things. I know plenty of people that wanted an end to apartheid, but voted no in the referendum because of the negotiations. Because when they actually looked at what was decided, they said, this is suicide. This is Afrikaner suicide. You have given us a country where we will never again be able to make any decisions for ourselves. We will be the slaves of the majority. And they were right. They were absolutely right. There is not a white person in this country that has any political say. Your vote matters in no way, shape, or form. So they were right. What should have happened in 1992 was the National Party should have negotiated a federalized system. A system whereby the national government does not have the power to tell the provinces what they can and cannot do. That is what should have happened. So on that front, I believe I understand why they decided to vote against the end of apartheid. But of course, other people will have what they have to say. I don't blame them for it. I think Pieter Groenewald has surprised me, and that's actually why I want to read up about him. He seems to be a lot more based than I thought. Saskia, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. USA Matt, how you doing, bro? Moved to Texas already? Texas, baby. Get myself a nice Texas lady, a cowgirl with cowboy boots. I like that. I like that idea, sir. I like that idea. If you build it, they will come. Ons moet nie net bid vir een nie. Ons moet voorberei vir een. Nats, you're not wrong, bro. You are absolutely not wrong. But Jan, I will tell you. As soon as I've done that research, I will give you an update and I will explain my view of Pieter Groenewald. But okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have to go. We will talk more tomorrow. Tomorrow I will be live 7 o'clock. Shirley, how are you doing? I will be live tomorrow again, 7 o'clock in the evening in America. Not entirely sure what time that is for you Americans. 9 o'clock in some time zones. I think Central is about 10 hours behind us, so that would be 9 o'clock your time in the morning. So for the East Coast, it's going to be 11 o'clock maybe? I think it's 8 hours, so it's 11, 12 o'clock probably. And then if you're on the West Coast, it's going to be 6 o'clock that I'll be live. But I'll be live tomorrow at 7, and we'll do whatever the hell is going on tomorrow. We'll see. Otherwise, I have some topics that I want to discuss with you guys, but I'll figure it out. Read Philippians 3:13 to 14 for me. I'm gonna quickly pull that up on my phone right now. Philippians 3:13 to 14. Gotta go. Cheers. One of 40. Thank you very much for being here. Really appreciate you. Grand Fall 7:23 right now for me in CST. Okay, so then it's actually going to be much later than that. Grand Fall. Much later than that. Let me just see. Philippians, you said. Here we go. Oh, it's the wrong one. Philippians 3:13 and 14, right? Let's see, what does it say? Brothers, I do not consider that I have made it my own, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead. I press on toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus. Amen. Amen. And yes, Black Ink, I'm going to be checking out Kim Clement as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I truly appreciate each and every one of you for being here, for hanging out with me, for spending time with me. I hope you enjoyed your time with me. And I promise that I will be back tomorrow, God willing. And there will be more videos tomorrow as well, because you can bet your bottom dollar our government is going to say something stupid before now and tomorrow morning. And I'll be looking forward to that. Isaiah 54, I think I know what that is. You are a great witness to the sovereignty of God and his divine will over all the earth and all in it. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Your superb insights are much appreciated. Shirley, thank you so much. I truly appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be good to each other. Be kind to each other. And I will see all of you in the next one. Peace.